Hello, my fellow humans. Today, we have Laura Watson, a distinguished business and leader coach with over 2 decades of experience. Laura specializes in guiding small business owners and C-level executives across North America to reach new heights, both personally and professionally. Her unique approach focuses on effective communication, mindset management, and personalized coaching strategies. Get ready to dive into the world of leadership development and discover how you can transform your personal and professional life as well. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. Today, we have Laura Watson, a business and leadership coach. If you could tell us more about what you do, Laura?
Sure. So as you mentioned, it's business and leadership coaching. So that means that's really just the mechanism, though. I really help business owners and leaders get to the next level, personally and professionally. So I work with small business owners. I work with C-level executives all across North America. And in their leadership development, I'm helping them plan a better business. I'm helping them communicate more effectively with their team members. I'm helping them manage their mindset more effectively. Helping them stay focused, holding them accountable, because sometimes they need a kick in the pants to get doing what they're supposed to be doing. Sounds like you can relate. And then sometimes, you know what? The work becomes personal, and I'm having conversations with them to support them in their marriages or with their parenting. So it's really a wide range of things that I get to do, and I absolutely love it.
And taking on all that responsibility for one person at a time, that can be overwhelming sometimes. You're pretty much their go-to person for everything. How do you
Well,
take
yes
that
and
on?
no, because as a
Yeah.
coach, I'm a guide. The client is still responsible for themselves. So, I'm not a hand holder, a type of person. I'm there to consult with and get support from and guide and provide tools and resources. Absolutely. But there's definitely a boundary that has to be maintained, right?
Yes.
I can lead a horse to water, but they got to drink.
Unfortunately, I mean, I've tried it the hard way. It doesn't work. They have to want to. That is very true. How long have you been working in leadership coaching?
I've been coaching for a little over 20 years. I've been in the helping profession this makes me sound old, like over 30 years.
Okay. What?
Yeah, don't listen to that part. Now, I started off in social work, actually, and in the nonprofit sector. So I have a master's degree in social work. I've done clinical work. I've done leadership work there in the nonprofit sector. And then I started to evaluate my career, discovered coaching, and have been working with business owners and executives ever since, and absolutely love the work.
That is amazing. Well, I know a lot of people are working with leaders nowadays. How do you find the people to work with who you know are going to do the work, like you were saying earlier? You say you can't guide them, you can't hold their hand, and not all leaders want to do that work necessarily because there's a lot of work involved, a lot of self-reflecting.
Yeah, there's definitely some effort, but anything worthwhile is going to take some effort, right? Business owners, senior leaders often get themselves into a position where they're sort of at the top of their organization, and they can end up in a feedback vacuum because who on the team is going to, second guess or give feedback to the boss sort of thing, right?
Right?
So, and if they're in this feedback vacuum and they've got some blind spots, they don't necessarily know how they're coming across all the time or if they're being the best leader they can be. You need somebody to show up and give them that feedback so that you can adapt and evolve and really be the best that they can be. So to answer your question, people tend to find me. I mean, I've had great results with my clients. And so when I get great results for people, they're happy to refer me. So they refer me to their networks. People find me on LinkedIn, because I'm usually posting some educational or informative content there. So yeah, it's really, and of course I've got my website and then opportunities like this to share some resources and some wisdom in various podcasts. And so there's a variety of ways that people end up finding me and we end up working together.
I know that podcasting and content is such a huge thing now. You see someone posting something kind of grabs your attention, like, what is this person about? How can they help me? But it's got to be like at the right time, the right moment in their life where they're like, I need help with this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people tend to seek help one of 2 points in their career, right, or their business. Either a crisis has hit, or they've achieved a certain level of success, and now they may even be getting a little bit bored, and they want to get to that next level. So, for example, I've got an engineer in Calgary who reached out to me during a time of crisis. He had to kick his business partner out of the business for a number of reasons, unfortunately, which meant he was taking over the entire enterprise himself. And he had some very strong feelings about his former partner that needed to get resolved, while he also had to step into a new way of leading his company. So, that was almost a year and a half ago that we started working together. And now the organization is a completely different place.
It's amazing. You reach out for help and you see that you need that help and you get it in your business and what it can
Yeah,
really do
and he
for
was a
you.
referral. I was actually working with a colleague of his. The colleague realized that he was in this crisis, referred me, and that's how we originally got together. Yeah, like I said, his business now is an entirely different place. He's got a GM on board. We've been able to get clear about what he's really best at and what he's not, so that he can do what he does best and delegate the rest. And we've had some challenges in how to let go and
Yeah, I
dealing
feel
with
that
that.
one. Trying to find that right thing, that right balance of
Mm.
where your knowledge ends and someone else's begins.
Yeah, exactly. So it's taken some work, but especially because of the situation with his business partner, there were some trust issues there. So it took him, that was holding him back from letting go and delegating effectively. So we've worked through those issues, and they're on track now to take their revenue through the roof. Just continued growth. Exactly. The team is growing, revenues are growing. He's in a much happier place. There's still some work to do, but we're all a work in progress,
It
right?
always is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how you put that because I always try and tell people you have to kind of do inner work also, not just the outer work. When you work on yourself, like you said about his business partner, there's some trust issues, but you work on yourself, that, or you don't work on yourself, lack thereof, that kind of reflects into the business. Things done, you can't go further, you can't overcome that hump, that last hurdle.
Yeah. Getting to the next level, personally, professionally, whatever that is an inside out process.
I'm
We
very,
have to lead ourselves effectively first, and then we can lead others and lead our organization. So it's sort of two sides of a coin, right? But it's definitely an inside out process. And
how
that's
would
what I
you
help people with.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing because I've been through that experience it myself, and I see that. And people are out there, they're like, "Well, that's easier said than done." But how would I help myself first, or how would you help me help myself to get to that point first? How does that process take place?
Yeah, well, sometimes it starts with identifying sort of what the challenges are at the time, because what the challenges that people are experiencing are often symptoms, and the symptoms of an underlying issue. And the underlying issue is something going on inside of them. And so having been in the game, over 20 years, I've got a really good sense of what the symptoms are and what the core issue is. And so I really work with people on identifying the core issue, because if we only ever work on the symptoms, then it's kind of like when you got a cold, you might take the cold medication, which will deal with the symptoms, but it doesn't take away the cold. We
100%.
have to wait until the cold actually goes away. Lots of coaches do a good job of helping people resolve the symptoms, but the change is not long lasting and sustainable unless you dig deeper and really deal with the core. Because if you deal with the core, then the symptoms go away and never come back.
I can
And so
attest to
that's
that.
where I like to dig. And that's what I mean by inside out sort of process, is that the inside stuff is the core issues. We identify those. we work on shifting those and eliminating those or managing them more effectively so that, and when that happens, the symptoms go away.
That is absolutely amazing. I can contest to that as well. I've actually went through that myself and experienced it. I know also too that sometimes that can't be an easy process because a lot of people seem like they don't want to. They meet change kind of like at the wall. They know they need to change to get over that hurdle, but they kind of don't know they don't really know how or if they're capable of doing that themselves too, or they fight you the whole way. What's been your experience with
Yeah,
that?
I mean, change can be a little scary, and sometimes we're more attached and it feels safer to keep dealing with the devil we know,
Ooh, I like he said
right?
that.
And change is uncomfortable, but there's an expression out there that sometimes we have to get comfortable with discomfort,
Yes.
right? And that's certainly something that I've learned, over the course of building my business and my practice. I've had to step into my discomfort zone lots of times because I just wasn't going to get the result I wanted unless I did. So
Yes.
yeah, sometimes we have to do that. The only way actually to do it is to step in to that discomfort zone and work through it so that we can get to the other side. There's no shortcuts.
I completely agree with that. I see that, especially in entrepreneurship. If you're working for a company, okay, you're comfortable. There's no reason to change, but you feel like something doesn't sit right. By seeing
Mhm.
more to be an entrepreneur, you have to be comfortable with change. You have to keep changing, keep leveling up, keep going different ways, expecting the unexpected. But if you work for a company, you're just
Yeah.
kind of there like, oh, it's okay. I'm floating through. Guys kind of seen those.
Yeah. And sometimes too, we have to get really clear with ourselves about
With
what's
that.
life and business going to be like if we don't change.
Ooh.
Because, right, we have to really understand the impact because sometimes we know we want something different. There is that possibility that we see for ourselves, but just focusing on the possibility, sometimes that's not strong enough impulse or strong enough to make us do what we need to do. And so we have to kind of get into the gutter with ourselves, if you will, and really look at what's going to happen if this continues? What's going to happen? What's life going to be like if I don't change? What's
You
the
gotta go to that
impact of this
deep,
going to
dark
be?
place.
Well, exactly. And so we really have to look at that and be honest with ourselves. Because if we're honest and we realize, you know what, if I don't change, I'm going to be in this exact same place 6 months from now, a year from now. And that often becomes the compulsion to decide, okay, you know what, it's time to do something different.
I learned that. That's scary to me now, being in that place of not change. I'm like, "Ugh, no, we gotta keep going. We gotta keep moving, buddy. Come on. Come
Yeah,
on."
exactly.
It's so true. We wanted to talk also about your leadership program. How long does it take to kind of go through it? Is it an ongoing thing? Are you always there with them? Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, well, my leadership program or coaching, if you will, it's not a set curriculum.
Okay.
So I do highly individualized and personalized work. So when I first start working with someone, I work with them in 90-day increments. Or if you think about change like walking up a staircase, then every step on the staircase is about 3 months. It kind of matches our business quarters. So
Yes.
when I first meet someone, I get a sense of their situation, what's going on in their world, what are their challenges, what are they up against, and what are they wanting to deal with. And we create individual goals and objectives for what they want to create. And then we work together for those 3 months towards achieving those goals. And then at the end of the 3 months, we have a check-in. We look at have they achieved them? Most of the time they have. And then at that point, we're like, okay, so what's the next step on the staircase? Sometimes people are done. They just want to work on one step on their staircase and they're feeling, okay, I got what I needed. Thanks very much. Like I just wrapped up with somebody yesterday who says, this has been great. And now I know I'm going to be busy for the summer, but we'll re-engage in the fall because I know it'll be at a different place and we'll look at that next step together. So that's
Very
great.
cool.
Other people are in a place where they just want to take the next step and then the next step and then the next step. And I end up working with them, a couple years, even 5 years. So everything's individualized and specific to the person, their goals and objectives, and where they're at in their life and what they want to accomplish. hopefully, that
Yeah,
answers your
that makes
question.
sense. We're all so different. Like you said, we have different objectives and goals that we want to reach. And some of us just like, just keep going. Yay. That sounds like me.
Well, yeah. And you know what? I'm not a cookie cutter coach. So I'm not here to say, oh, here's my package and you're going to buy into this program
Yeah,
and
those don't work.
do, right? Yeah, it doesn't work for everyone. So I want to meet the client where they're at, understand what's going on for them, set some goals and objectives together. And over the years, what I've done, I'm also a very practical coach. So I'm all about bridging theory to practice because that's where the value gets created, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to know what to do, but if we don't know how to do it or how to put it into practice, then we're not going to get the benefit.
That's a lot of issues with coaching I've noticed too. They tell you how, but not to get there.
Well, yeah, they tell you what to do. Oh, just do this. It's like, but they're not looking deeper or providing the how. So I've created a toolkit, over the past 20 years of models and approaches, so that people can bridge that gap and really put things into practice. So I would say, my coaching's kind of a hybrid approach of coaching as well as a bit of training, if you will, so that people can put these things into practice and that really reap the benefits of that.
I like that approach because, like we said, not everyone's a one size fit all.
That's
And
right.
like so many coaches, they try and put you into like kind of this box and like, oh, just sell a program just to make money. Like, oh, this is gonna work, but they don't understand that we're so different. That's not gonna work. That's not the case for all of us. I like
Yeah,
your
and you know what?
approach.
I've done the
Yeah,
same thing myself when I was growing my business in the beginning. I knew there were things I didn't know. I bought very expensive programs thinking, oh,
yeah.
this is the answer. And, and got a lot of here's what to do, but not how to do it. Or the how came with, a more expensive package kind of thing. And
Yes.
yeah, so, I've
It's
been there, done
frustrating.
that.
I really like that
And
you actually see and understand that. You're trying to work with people to genuinely help them be better human beings in themselves and their business. I feel like that's what
yeah,
true coaching is.
exactly. And I also realize that, issues don't just come up in the coaching session. And actually, the value of coaching is really realized in between the sessions when people are putting things into practice. And then something might happen in the week between our meeting and, they need extra support. So I'm always there. People don't have to wait for the next time our session is booked. They can call me, they can email me, and I'm always happy to chat with my clients in between so that they can get support in the moment live when it's going to make the most difference.
That's truly showing how much passion you have for what you do, actually trying to help them, being that human element, understanding that things change or dynamic, they're not static. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
like you said earlier, I've experienced a lot of different coaching programs help me. It was just pretty much burnt me out almost, you know?
Yeah.
They weren't really there to help me achieve where I was trying to be, or they didn't understand where I was trying to go or ask the right questions. But luckily I saw that and it was just just butting heads.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, what are some common things that you've seen in your coaching career with your clients that arise in trying to coach them and get them from A to B?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's definitely lots of common threads that I end up
Like
dealing with.
top 5.
Top 5. Well, focus, procrastination. So focus and distraction, procrastination, communication issues, delegation problems.
You can keep going. These are all really good ones. I feel that.
Those are a lot. And then I guess the fifth one would be um, mental and emotional mastery, like being reactive to situations, making up assumptions about what's happening, and then reacting to situations prematurely, and then which ends up actually sabotaging them
Yeah.
and getting them into
I
trouble.
see that one a lot, reactive. We try and teach a
Yeah.
proactive mindset. It's not always easy. You've been so reactive for so long. How do you turn that mindset from reactive to proactive? Is there like a specific tool or guide you use to help coach them?
Yes. So people are often reactive because they're unaware, first of all. And then they become aware of their reactivity later and say, oh, shouldn't have done that.
Oh, I feel
So
that.
So I actually have a model that I use with people, which helps them understand that, first of all, things happen, events happen, whether it's getting cut off in traffic, whether it's not getting a report back from somebody on time, whether it's somebody saying something we didn't like in a staff meeting. Things happen.
For humans.
Exactly. But those things are events. They're just a piece of data. And then what happens in a split second, we react to that event because we've gone into resistance to it, which means we've judged it negatively. And it's the negative judgment to that event that creates that automatic reaction. But that automatic reaction is actually linked to some sort of limiting belief we're holding or story we're holding about other people, about ourselves. And then
that
story, yeah. And then that story leads us to an automatic behavior like acting out, like expressing our temper, like slamming a door. And that becomes a downward spiral that we end up in until, some time has passed. And that's when we're in that reflective place of like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. So if people so sometimes helping people with that means helping them see that pattern and unwind it for themselves. And in the unwinding which basically builds awareness. And as they build awareness, then they can go back to those events and realize, you know what? Events are just pieces of data. They're actually neutral. They're not good. They're not bad. They're not right. They're not wrong. They're just a piece of data. And if we can remind ourselves that it's just a neutral piece of data, then instead of going into resistance to it and starting that downward spiral, we can flip into acceptance of it. And when we're in acceptance, we may not like it. We may not be happy about it. Right. But if we can get into acceptance, exactly, and realize, well, okay, it is what it is. It's just a piece of data. Then we can take the next step, which is getting ourselves into a place of choice. It's like, okay, I may not like this event, but what do I want to do about it now? And we can consciously choose what we're going to do about it and consciously respond versus unconsciously react.
That's the step to building your emotional intelligence up.
Exactly. And once we're into choice, we've thought it through, then we can get ourselves moving forward again.
I feel like once you do that, everything else can kind of fall into place a lot more. It's easier to kind of maintain and guide through.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an example of a process or a model that I might use with my clients to help them develop that. We walk through, I present that, we walk through it, help them relate to it. All of what I've described there is also connected to some complicated brain activity. It's related to how our brains operate. So I often do a bit of education to help people understand why this is happening the way it is. It's obviously very common and doesn't have to be the way we do life and business.
100%.
We can learn to do it differently. We can learn to manage ourselves differently and more effectively. And when people learn it and then practice it, then they get the change that they're looking for.
Ooh, that was so powerful. This is kind of why I talk about bridging your personal life and your business life, and just putting those systems in your personal and in your business are very powerful. They go both ways. Like you build a business, like for example, like me, as I built my business, I learned a lot of these systems that kind of helped me in my personal life that I never knew existed. But there were business systems. Why would business systems help me build my personal life? But I keep trying to tell people you have to bridge that personal and business together, because we're human beings doing business with other human beings.
Exactly. Like, it's all intertwined, right? Yeah. So this emotional mastery model that I just described to you, obviously it's going to work at the office, but guess what? It works at home with our spouses, with our kids, with our friends, because the office isn't the only place where we're probably getting reactive.
Nope.
Right? And if we're getting reactive, we're at risk of damaging our relationships, our business relationships, our personal relationships, and no one wants that either.
No
So
one wants
again,
to
when
work
we
for
can
you.
learn to manage ourselves more and lead ourselves more effectively, we're going to create change and have more powerful relationships at
Ooh,
home and at work.
so powerful right there. Yes. Like you said earlier, the self-leadership. You
Mm-hmm.
lead yourself, you lead others around you
Exactly.
more gracefully.
And leadership can be whether we're a parent leading our family, whether we're on a volunteer board sort of thing, whether we're a coach leading little league kind of thing, or whether we've got a title at the office of CEO. Leadership is not attached to a title,
Ooh. Can you
right?
please repeat that again? That's so
Well,
powerful.
leadership is not attached to a title. And I wish I could claim that quote, but
I
it's
know.
actually the name of a book that I love, which is called The Leader Who Had No Title by Robin
Ooh,
Sharma.
I'm gonna have to check that book
It's
out.
a fantastic book. It's a great story. And I wish I could claim the quote, but I really can't.
And I've been learning that recently, and I've been preaching that because you're in a position that you have a title, it does not make you a leader.
That's
And a
true.
lot of people that are in these positions and titles are not leaders. They don't know how to be proper leaders or help lead people correctly.
Well, that's it. It's a different skill set. Many people have climbed the corporate ladder because they're good at what they do,
Yeah.
which is fine. And there's a really dangerous assumption that gets made that if I know my job, then automatically I can lead others. And that's not the case.
Ooh.
And so I've definitely had situations where people have been expert practitioners, experts at their skill. And that's a lot of small business owners. Like a lot of my clients are architects, engineers, accountants. They're excellent subject matter experts.
Yes.
They know what they're doing. And now they said, oh, well, I can run a business. And then they start trying to lead others. And they realize running a business, leading others, completely different ballgame. And that's when they start getting in themselves in trouble. And they wonder, why have I got such high turnover? Why is my business not moving forward fast enough? It's because it's a different skill set.
Yeah.
So getting some help to learn the leadership skills that are lacking and maybe some of the personal skills that are lacking can make a world of difference.
Percent. I love how you said that. I definitely see that all the time. And I've learned you have to have those soft skills. You have to be able to connect with people. When you can connect with them, listen to them, and understand them, then you can truly lead them. You can be a servant leader. But people don't really understand how that works. They're like, I can do my business. That's fine. I don't need to do this. And it's kind of a wake up call. Like, I can't do this. But then sometimes they don't know how or where to ask for help, or they think that, well, this is how it is. This is how it's supposed to be. It's okay. And that can be very dangerous and becomes toxic, like you're saying, in the workplace.
Yeah.
You have people leaving you, not respecting you. You're hiring the wrong people because of your own toxicity and lack of leadership. It's very
Right.
dangerous.
And so that turnover, for example, becomes it's a symptom of an underlying issue.
Yeah.
They start getting some really tough feedback, i.e. a high turnover rate, because they don't realize, for example, that their communication sucks. And no one on their team is telling them that their communication sucks. They're just putting up with it until they don't want to put up with it anymore, and then they're leaving. And so now the owner is getting some feedback that, oh, people are leaving. Oh, it's because, but they're often pointing the finger at the others rather than looking at themselves. And if they're willing to sort of look at themselves and hire someone, bring someone into their world who can give them the feedback that they're lacking, help them understand, you got a high turnover rate, it's probably, that's a symptom of something that's going on with yourself. And if they're
Right.
willing to look at themselves and what's creating that issue, then there's skills to learn. But unfortunately, most of us don't learn effective
And like
communication
you
skills
said,
in
if
school.
they're
I
willing to
didn't.
look at it.
Yeah, if they're willing to look at it. Absolutely.
So I mean to interrupt you, but you say, yeah, most of us don't learn that in school at all. We're not taught these things that we need to know and learn. We should know.
Well, exactly. I mean, communication is such a huge issue. The quality of our relationships, whether it's personal relationships or business relationships, the quality of our relationships is one of the main things that the quality of our relationships is dependent on is the quality of our communication.
100%.
And, that's why I got certified as a communication trainer 25 years ago, because my family was young. I started hearing myself speak like my dad did. And it was like, oh my gosh, wake up call.
You be certified and speak? I need to look into this. I would
Yeah.
love to do that.
Yeah. It was transformational. There's 2 books that I always recommend to my clients.
Yes.
One is called Leader Effectiveness Training by Dr. Thomas Gordon. And it's really communication skills. And Dr. Gordon actually wrote a series of books. So he's got leader effectiveness training, but that actually came on the heels of a book called Parent Effectiveness Training, which again is communication skills that we can use at home. And then he's got sales effectiveness training, teacher effectiveness training. He took all these communication skills because they're core skills, and then he just wrote books for the various audiences. So those are 2 go-tos, resources that I use with my clients. I have them read those all the time so that they can learn the communication skills that are going to make the difference.
Because I'm in this leadership field right now. It's just like something's been calling to me. And inside, I want to do the best I can with it. I know I have a lot of growth and leveling up to do with it. Like I'm learning different things. I try not to talk over people, which is really hard for me. Trying to communicate things to people so they understand on their level. It's just, there's a lot of nuances to it to learn with it.
There is a lot of nuance. Yeah. And actually, one of the most powerful communication skills that a leader can practice is listening.
100.
But there's ways to listen effectively. And that's what I love about these books is it actually, because there's a lot of books out there, like we talked about earlier, that teach what, but they don't teach how. And the books that teach what just drive me crazy. It's like, okay, now I know what to do, but how do I do it? And that's why I love LET and PET, because it talks about what and how. So those books actually help people bridge that gap.
Principles
and if they're willing to read and then they're willing to practice, they're going to get new results.
I like how you put that. It's so true. I have to keep practicing it. That's why I found this podcast. Like it opens up talking to people, having conversations, learning to talk, interact with people, learning to listen, not talk over them, but all of those skills. And it's just amazing just to doing this and communicating and learning from other people.
It's super powerful. These are books that my husband and I read early on when the kids were little. It transformed our marriage. It transformed our parenting. And they're skills that I bring to the table in my coaching with clients every day.
Absolutely amazing, especially with the parenting part, because none of us are born parents. None of us know how to parent. Some of us shouldn't be parents, but that's a different story. You can learn, people understand you can learn to be better. Why wouldn't you, especially for your kids? When you want to learn to be a better parent, to raise them better, the best you can. Why wouldn't you want to do that? It's like a no-brainer. But
well, yeah, exactly. Lots of people say, "Oh, there's no book on parenting." You know what? There actually is.
There's tons of books. Okay, open your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a question for you.
Yeah,
we were talking earlier about leaders sometimes not understanding that they may need help. But say, like, if I was someone in a job or a business, and there was a leader that I saw that had these qualities that people were leaving, everyone was scared to talk to him or have conversations with him. What would you recommend to them to kind of approach that leader or start that conversation with them, kind of like on their terms, not to like overpower them or whatnot?
Well, yeah. So basically what you're talking about there is about someone wanting to come forward and give their leader some feedback.
Yes.
Right. And so I always recommend to people that if they have some feedback that they want to share, the first step is always to ask permission. So set intention and ask permission. So a manager might go to their leader, for example, and say, I really, I like you. I really want to help you be, I see you trying hard. I'd really love to help you be a more effective leader or a great leader. And I've noticed a couple of things and I have some feedback to offer. Are you open to hearing it? And so that's a way to set intention. I see you. I really would love to help you be the best you can be. I have some feedback. Are you open?
But they're going to be like, who are you to talk to me? You're the secretary or the IT guy or my whatever, whatever position you may be. How do you establish that authority? Like, well, I have this feedback. It's important.
Well, authority doesn't matter. It really then is up to the leader about whether or not they're open, right? Like, not everybody's going to be open, unfortunately.
Very true.
But if you think about it, I like to believe in the goodness of people. That's my bias. I'll be open about it. If someone were to come to me and say, I kind of noticed something and I have some feedback to offer. Are you open? I'm going to say yes. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, just because someone gives us feedback doesn't mean we have to follow it.
100%.
Right? But it does give us an opportunity to hear it, consider it, decide, is it valid? Has the person got a point? And then decide what to do with it or not, or to act on it. I've got a fun little story. Years ago, when our daughter was about 4 or 5 years old, my husband came home from work. He was not in a great headspace that day. He was not being the best parent he could be. And he started yelling at our daughter for whatever reason. So here you've got this big guy with this little 5-year-old, and he's yelling, and she looks up at him and says, "Dad, that approach isn't going to work right now." And that stopped him in his tracks. And he said, "You know what? You're right." So here's this little 5-year-old with technically no authority looking up at her dad and saying, "You know what? That's not going to work right now." And he was, to his credit, he was open to hearing it. And he stopped and he changed his approach on a dime. Now, that's after having done some of this communication work that I've talked about, right? But I think it shows an example of we don't have to be in a position of authority to offer someone some feedback.
Never heard that before.
We can share our intention, ask for permission to deliver it, and then the person's going to say yes or no. If the person says no, then fair game. They're not open, and we carry on. And if they say yes, then we can share the feedback that we have to offer, and then let the person sit with it and decide what to do with it.
Balls in their court.
Exactly.
I know that's one of the things that I've been learning to overcome as leader myself, understanding that no matter what advice you have or information you have to give, all you can do is just give it and hope that it's perceived and understood, and maybe they do it, maybe they don't. I used to think before, like, this is ridiculous. Like, I tell you this, it matters, it's important. Why aren't you doing it? I used to think that way, like, why are you stupid? You know what I mean? In my mind. But I realized,
well, yeah. And then sometimes if someone has not followed through, then we have to look at how did we communicate in the first place? Maybe we weren't clear even though we thought we were.
Ooh,
right? So that's an important piece of, effective communication needs clarity. And lots of people think they're clear when they're not. And there's tools that we can learn to help ensure that clarity, right? So clarity is super important, and helping the person understand the impact of their behavior. That's another important element of delivering feedback, is people often aren't willing or prepared to change unless they understand the impact their behavior is having.
That means it has to be they have to decide that it's okay to change it based on that.
Well, they have to decide to make the change, but often they're not compelled to make the change until they understand the impact their behavior is having.
Okay.
And I was just having this conversation with one of my clients this week. So for example, at this another engineering firm, we've got a guy coming in to his manager saying, "Oh, I need to take such and such a day off and another day off." And, there's allowances for that, but he's not thinking about the impact his absence has on his teammates.
Ooh.
And so he's communicating to his manager, but he had no intention to communicate to his teammates that he was going to be away. And without telling them, how do they all, manage their workload in a way, because they're a team. Everyone's, integrated and working together. And if
Yeah.
there's a piece of the team missing, then that's going to impact another part of the team. And sometimes we forget. We're kind of all walking around the world with these blinders on, only
Guilty
thinking
of
about
that
our own
sometimes.
world and what affects us. And we don't always look at the people around us. And so part of delivering effective feedback is helping someone understand the impact that their behavior is having on those around them. And if they care about those relationships, then oftentimes the impact was just a blind spot. They didn't realize. Once they realize and have awareness, then they're willing to do something different.
That's very impactful, truly, though. I never put into words that way because I've always thought, yeah, I get what I do causes my actions have consequences all the way around. But it's putting into those terms as you did, it impacts everything, especially from a team point of view. That makes a lot more clarity and sense to me.
Yeah, well, good.
I just learned some. I might have learned a few things today.
I hope so. I always show up wanting to provide value. So
Yes,
I hope I'm doing so.
very much. We're definitely have to have you back on here. It's been a very amazing pleasure to have you on here today.
Well, I would love to have another conversation sometime.
Yes. I'd love to know, do you have anything you'd like to leave our audience with? Maybe some important steps, anything that they can take if they want to kind of better themselves and their roles or help someone else maybe around them as well. They may see being impacted by lack of leadership, I should say.
Well, I think, based on our conversation today, I think what I'd like to leave your audience with is if you've got concerns or issues going on, or you're seeing, in your place of employment or in your business, be willing to look at yourself first. It's just so easy to point fingers and say it's somebody else or it's the organization, and it's probably not. Change, I love Gandhi's quote of be the change you want to see in the world,
I
which
love that
means
too.
it starts with us. So I invite your listeners to be willing to look at themselves first. And if they want some tools or resources that could help them with that, whether they're an owner wanting to plan their business differently, or whether they're wanting to learn some communication skills or how to deliver feedback, I've got a whole bunch of free downloads on my website. So if they go to venturecoaching.ca, because I'm in Canada, and you're probably going to put the URL in your show notes, I hope.
Yes, you'll put it down below.
Okay, awesome. Then there's a free tab on my website, and there's a bunch of free downloads there where they can learn some mental and emotional mastery. They can learn some communication skills, feedback skills, some sales and marketing stuff. So I would invite them to take advantage of those free resources. And then if they want to have a conversation with me, I'm always happy to do so. And they can reach me through my website as well.
Thank you so much, Laura. You've been such an amazing guest on our show today. Such great value presented to us. I hope it sits well with people to take action to help change their lives, learn to understand to be the leader. The leader that they need already inside them. They just need to learn how to cultivate it and bring it out to help themselves and people around them. I hope they can do that with the conversation that we've had today.
Exactly. And just remember, they don't have to have a leadership. They don't have to have a title to be a leader.
Yes, that is very true. I mean, I learned that myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's inside us.
Great. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Again, I hope that I've been able to deliver a bit of value to your listeners.
Just a little bit, just a little.
Excellent. So that's what I'm here to do. And if I can continue to support and provide value in any way, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Laura. You have, and I will definitely be reaching out to you again and have another conversation with you. It's
I
been
would love
my
that.
pleasure. Thank you, Laura.
My pleasure.